and welcome to the How To Girl TV. I'm Carol Dodsley, better known as the How To Girl, and on today's show I've got a really great guest for you. His name's Peter Thomson and he's now regarded as one of the UK's leading strategists on business and personal growth. Starting in 1972, he built 3 successful companies, selling the last to a public company after only 5 years of trading for 4.2 million, which enabled him to retire at the age of 42. And since then, Peter's concentrated on sharing his proven methods for business and personal success via audio and video programs, books, seminars and conference speeches. He specialises in helping coaches, consultants, speakers, trainers and small business owners to share more of their authentic messages with more people than they ever could on a one-to-one basis by showing them how to write and create and market their own informational products. Peter is a really great conversationalist, a really great product creator, and his stories are just absolutely fascinating. And I'm not going to tell you any more about him now. You can find out lots under this interview video, and you're going to find out even more because I'm going to go over now and welcome Peter to the show. Hi, and welcome to the show, Peter.
Delighted to be with you, Carol. Thanks very much indeed for inviting me.
It's an absolute delight for me to have you here, and I think it's brilliant. Obviously, lots and lots of people already know who Peter Thomson is, but there's also lots of people who probably don't, because we have a massive, great big world out there, and this show's going global. So can you obviously you're known for a business and self-development strategist, and your key speciality is product creation and helping people to do that for themselves.
Yes.
Can you just tell me a little bit, how did you actually get into it?
Wow, how long have we got?
As long as you want.
Well, I started over 40 years in business. I mean, how could you possibly tell 40 years in business? But I've been in business now for over 40 years, and I was involved in a variety of very, very interesting businesses. Originally, I was in the investigation business. I was a private investigator, but my specialist area was tracing absconded debtors. And having set that business up, within about 2 years, we were being asked to trace over 4,000 people a month. Wow. Which is a lot of people, isn't it? A lot of people.
It certainly is.
So I built that up, and then I got involved in the electronics area of being a private eye, you know, with bugging and debugging and all that type of thing, which was fascinating. And that led me into the leasing industry because I started to sell car phones. And I found that selling car phones on lease was a lot easier than selling car phones for an upfront payment. When you remember that car phones in those days sold for £1,350 and came in a box that big and had to be installed in your car with a big aerial that wobbled around on the back end of your car. So at £1,350, but you could, by selling the rental stream, you could make an awful lot more money. And I used to sell 1 phone a day myself, apart from my team, and I would make £1,000 a phone. And we're talking 25 at least years ago. And so that led me into the leasing industry. And I set up a business called Compass Leasing PLC in Birmingham in the UK. And I built that up for 5 years. Till we had 65 people. We were turning about 40 million a year of other people's money. And we sold it. And I sold it for £4.2 million over 20 years ago. And retired for a while. Now, 4.2 million is a fortune today, but 4.2 million over 20 years ago was a lot of money, as you can imagine, and it's not a lot of money today. And then I sat down one day, having retired for a couple of years, and faffed about and do various things that you do if you've got some money. And I wrote down a question to myself, which is, what do you love to do? And the answers came back that I love to stand and speak, and I'm one of those few individuals that actually love standing and speaking and sharing my ideas. And I felt I had some ideas to share, because whilst I'm a great one to say, Carol, as you know, I definitely don't have all the answers, I certainly got some answers based on some of the successes and some of the failures I'd had along the way. So over the last 20 odd years, I've been writing, recording and marketing my very own informational products. So I've got over 100 audio programs, over 100 DVDs, 3 books, 7 tips, you name it. And so these last few years, I've been showing coaches, consultants, speakers and trainers how they too can write, create, market their very own informational products for both lead generation and income generation, and being able to reach more people than they could ever dream of reaching on a one-to-one basis so they can share their authentic message with more people. And I have to say, Carol, I don't think I've done anything better in my life. It is just magnificent. I absolutely love it.
Brilliant. And I think that very last thing that you just said, you absolutely love it. That is one of the, to me, that's one of the keys to creating a successful business. You have to really enjoy what you're doing. Would you agree with that?
I do, but again, there is a caveat to this. And I remember some years ago, somebody had pointed me to a report that's online called The Common Denominator of Success by Albert E. N. Gray. And in this report, which is only about 4 or 5 pages, and I think it was Bob Proctor, you probably know Bob Proctor, it was Bob who mentioned that to me. And I went and had a read of this. And what Albert E. N. Gray says, and this is from the sort of 1920s, 1930s, this report, and he was in the insurance industry, he said this. He said, successful people focus on pleasing outcomes and failures focus on pleasing actions. And of course, when we think about what we were just talking about, you've got to love what you do. Here's the way I phrase it to people. I say you absolutely have to love what you do, but, and it's but not however or and as the conjunction, but you have to do what needs to be done. And unfortunately, because we do hear this expression a lot about love what you do, a lot of people think they can just go around life expecting to be successful only doing what they love to do, rather than doing what needs to be done to the point where they love doing that too. So for example, as a sole trader, as an owner-driver, as a solopreneur, we've got to wear so many different hats. We've got to be good at accounts because business is all about numbers. It's the magic of maths and the fascination of fractions. We've got to be able to use an Excel spreadsheet or a numbers spreadsheet if we use Mac, because these things are essential. And you can't shy away from that. You've got to learn to do it to the point where you love doing it, so it becomes something else you love doing. As a solopreneur, at some stage, you've got to learn to stand and speak in public. And one of my biggest, Carol, will be this, and here's a different take on it, if you like, is I think something we have to do, all of us in business, and it's you have to love selling. And I believe you have to learn how to sell, and then you have to stop selling and allow people to buy. And once you make that mindset shift, that paradigm shift, that thought process movement, life just changes. You can do this, you can go, see how I've got my shovel such because I'm concentrating. You can totally and utterly relax, knowing that the final arbiter in any sales conversation, any customer conversation, is always the supplier and never the customer. And people don't really understand that, and they think it's always up to the customer whether they buy. No, it's not. It's up to the supplier whether they supply. And once you've got that mindset change, you can just relax, because then you go into a meeting with a client to gather information, to find out if their problem is something you can solve, or if the opportunity they're looking to capitalize on is something you can help them with. And as Tony Alexander, a brilliant guy from the States, says, and I've interviewed him, by the way, many years ago, he says, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. And unfortunately, a lot of people prescribe their solution before diagnosing their customers' problems. So these are some slightly different takes on things. So yes, I agree with you. We have to love what we do, but, however, we have to do what needs to be done too.
Yeah, and I think that is something that is really important, because there's lots of people out there saying, find your passion and the money will follow. But it's like you say, there will always be things that you have to do on a day-to-day basis that you perhaps don't enjoy doing. But to me, if people are focused on that outcome, on helping other people, those tasks that you're saying until you love doing them, that does actually happen, because when you do that bit you don't like doing, you're going to get that result, which is going to allow you to do the bit that you want to do and help the people you want to help.
It's true. And, I mean, it's the old problem, the two big problems that stop people, well, there's more than two, but the basic two problems are time and money. Yeah. So you either decide to do the stuff yourself, in other words, you spend time, or you employ someone to do it, in other words, you spend money. But that's the choice. You only have that choice. Yeah. Is, are you going to spend time, or are you going to spend money? People say to me about lead generation, they want more leads in their business. So that's great. It's easy to get leads. Spend time or money. You either learn how to get leads by spending your time doing it, or you pay somebody else to do it. I mean, or you pay for advertising, you pay for pay-per-click, or you pay for direct mail, or you pay for email marketing, or you pay for a new website, or you pay for it, or you learn how to do it. There is no other choice. It isn't going to fall from the sky, you know.
Really?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? People sit there by the phone waiting for it to ring. I mean, it's not going to happen, you know.
So there you were talking about lead generation. What would you say to people? Because that is, I mean, the biggest question I get asked, and the thing most people talk about is, how do I attract more clients? Well, if you want to attract more clients, you've got to have more people to talk to. Because if you're sitting at home, like you say, the phone is not going to ring if nobody knows you're sitting there.
Yep.
So what ideas would you give to people how they can actually, especially, I mean, people that have been in the business a long time like yourself, you know the ideas, you know what you can do if you want to attract more clients. But what about people that are starting out or have not been, they've tried all the magic buttons that we now know there is no such thing.
No.
What can they do that is, without overwhelming themselves, how can they start to get that real, getting those leads coming in so that they are attracting more clients?
Fantastic. I mean, this is something I definitely teach people, Carol, as you know. Let me take you back to when I started in this business over 20 years ago in the information marketing business. So I was going to be a coach, consultant, speaker, trainer. So I was doing sales training, I was doing business growth consultancy with clients, I was standing on stages around the world, speaking, sharing my ideas on business and personal growth, but I had no clients. I knew what I wanted to do, but I had no clients at all. So I'm still using today the same strategies I used then. So let me share with you exactly how I did it over 20 years ago. And then someone can simply duplicate this process, right? In those days, I wanted to send out or get people to ask for an informational product that would enable me to share my ideas with them so that from those ideas they could go, yeah, this guy's got something to talk about. I'm happy to have the next conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not I'm happy to become a client yet, I'm happy to have the next conversation. Because one of the mistakes that people make, I feel, with lead generation is they try to sell not the next click. They try to sell too far down the sales process. When we're selling, you only ever sell the next action. I call it the double six system. It's a bit like playing dominoes, right? You've got a series of dominoes in a row, right? You only have to knock this one down, and it'll knock this one down, and so on. Don't try and knock this one or this one down because you've missed this one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just like playing dominoes. You only got to get the first one right, and then as long as you understand the process and keep with it, you can get the rest of it right. Don't sell, if you're selling somebody an appointment, don't sell them the product you're going to talk about. Sell the appointment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, back in that day, what I did then, I nearly said back in the day, as people say. Go on, I'll leave it in back in the day, right? What I did was I realised that to get people to be interested in what I had to talk about, I had to engage them in some way, and I had to demonstrate either my credibility or the credibility of my ideas. And sometimes it's just powerful when you start to demonstrate the credibility of your ideas because you may feel you don't have the credibility yourself. And I speak to people, I'm sure you do, Carol, who have that problem. You know, they come at it with this problem, as you said before. How do I get more leads? How do I make more money? How do I get more time in my life? Those are the three key problems that people have. So I created a cassette in those days called Once Upon a Time There Were Two Frogs, which is a really unusual title. And there's two ways to come at this. When you create an informational product, which these days, of course, can be delivered online as a download PDF, as a page-turn book, as an e-book, as an MP3, as a video, whatever it is that you're going to do, when you create this informational product, the critical part about it is the title. Because the title is what will attract people to you. So a classic one that I have these days is the 7 big mistakes that business owners unwittingly make, costing them lost profits, lost turnover, and lost personal cash, and how to avoid it. You know, nice short title there.
Yeah.
Well, that's anybody responding to that, anybody throwing up their hand in the marketplace is obviously interested in that concept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So the title must attract the client and position the solution to their possible challenge. Mm-hmm. You say that again. The title must attract the right client with the right problem where you have the solution. Or it must be an intriguing title. So I used Once Upon a Time There Were Two Frogs because I knew a fabulous attitude story called Once Upon a Time There Were Two Frogs. And what I did was I rented a mailing list with only 2,000 names on it. And to 1,000 of those names, I sent a letter with the cassette. So I invested, yeah? And I sent out 1,000 cassettes with this letter, asking people to listen to the cassette and phone me back. There was no response mechanism, there wasn't a reply code card, there was no website where they could go up and sign up, there was nothing. They had to stand up, do something, make a phone call to me. And the reason I was doing my utmost, Carol, to suppress response was so that those people who did inquire had pre-qualified themselves by their level of interest. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
The second 1,000, I sent them a letter saying, please ask for the cassette, Once Upon a Time There Were Two Frogs. Because like any bit of marketing, you always test. You never, ever send out a piece of marketing without a test in it. So that was the test that I did. Either I'll send it or people have to ask for it. Now, as it happened, out of the 1,000, I got 3.6% response, i.e. 36 people, out of the one where I had sent the cassette. Out of the one where I'd asked them to ask for the cassette, I only got 1.1% response, i.e. 11 people. And you'd think, therefore, you would move forward sending out cassettes. However, because this is marketing, the amount of business I did from both was the same. So I found very early in life that you actually don't send stuff to people, or if you do, you only ever do it as a test. You ask people to put their hand up in the marketplace and ask for it. And I still use this strategy 21, 22, 23 years later, as it is now, where now you can do it online. You have what's called a squeeze page, and you often give people free information in exchange for their details. This was exactly the same process. So all I did was people phoned in, and I talked to them, whether or not their problem was something I could solve. Where it was, I arranged to go and see them, and I sold them some business. And my whole business life from there took off. And here I am today, 20 odd years later, not doing any physical training anymore. I don't do that stuff. I have very much a lifestyle business, but using exactly the same lead generation strategy I've used for those 20 odd years. Why? Because it works. Surprise, surprise. And I'm seeing it all over the place these days. You know, we've been using it for more than 20 years, and I'm now seeing it everywhere. You see every internet site, well, any internet site of any sense has some facility for a client to sign up for some free information in exchange for their details.
Yeah.
The key to this is to make sure you capture the right details from people, and then that you've got a systemized follow-up process to turn those suspects into prospects and those prospects into customers. That's the basic process.
Which, and it's, you know, you said there about it's something you used 20 years ago. Really, everything we do is what has always worked if we do it the right way. We just change the tools we use to deliver it. And as you also said, we're now very much online. There's so much noise online though, and there's a load, I mean, everywhere there's a squeeze page. Put your name in here and give me your details, I'll give you something free. And a lot of people are getting a bit, well, you know, is it really worth it? Because there is a lot of rubbish being given for free as well.
Yep.
What would you, because obviously that free gift is something that's going to help those people who have said, yes, I want it, and put their hand up. That's the intention of the free gift, is to get them to know, like, and trust you.
Correct.
And lots of people are saying, well, I don't want to give away my stuff because then how are they going to buy from me? So they try and give away things that are not that good.
I know the answer to this question.
I know you do.
Right, okay. It's quite simple. Firstly, back to the point you said about the plethora of noise out there in the marketplace, and the way that we actually sell things or market things. My friend Ted Nicholas said to me one day, he said, Peter, with the internet, it's not a case of teaching an old dog new tricks. It's a case of teaching a new dog old tricks. Or in other words, the stuff that we've used for years and years in direct mail, in postcard mailings, in face-to-face selling, all of these things are still totally and utterly applicable on the web. So, for example, if somebody has a video on their website, the skills that you would use to be face-to-face with a client are exactly the same skills. Just people don't realise that. And unfortunately what they do, they talk as though they're talking to an audience instead of talking to one person. You know, which totally spoils the rapport, as you know, breaks rapport instantly. So I think there is a lot of noise, and the way that you get through the noise, and the way to answer your other question as well, firstly, the way to get through the noise is to dare to be different. Now, that doesn't mean that you're so off the wall that you will push people away because they go, wow, this person's crazy. Yeah. But don't go copying what other people do. Be your authentic self. And then some people will absolutely resonate with you and a load of people won't. But it doesn't matter that those who won't, because to be successful in business, to be successful in life, to have a lifestyle business, which is what I would advocate for anybody, you actually don't need many clients. Yeah? If you want to become a multimillionaire, you need many, 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 many clients. If you want a fabulous business that enables you to live the life of Riley and have the home of your dreams, the homes of your dreams, whatever cars, if you're into cars, if you want to have lots of holidays, spend lots of time with your family, if you want to play sports or visit places in the world, you can do that with very few clients, Carol. You don't need thousands and thousands and thousands of clients to do that. So it's being really clear what you want, absolutely clear what you want. So the way that you do it with informational products is this, and I learned this in a book. I learned the expression in a book, and you already knew the concept. And it was a book by Herschel Gordon Lewis called Sales Letters That Sizzle. It was a book about copywriting. And he was talking about copywriting, but I took it to mean something else, like I'd like to take most lessons in life and see how I can leverage them somewhere else in my life. And he said, fire your big guns first, right? Now, I'm a believer in copy, when I write copy, of firing my big guns first. For example, I will say to people, you know the sort of website where you go to where the real information is 2 pages deep? And people go, yeah. And I go, actually, no, you don't, because you never got there. You bailed out earlier, right? Your key information must be above the fold. Yeah? The big gun has got to be above the fold. That's why there's a headline on the top of all sales websites. Without the headline, you're going nowhere. That's why every newspaper in the world has a headline, every direct mail, every email has a subject line, because that's the first thing that people see. So people are scared about giving away their quality information. But think of this logically for a moment, let alone emotionally. If I send somebody a free report and it's full of crap, they think I'm crap. If I say what my information is, if I send them a free report, whether it's on video, whether it's on email, whether it's a PDF, or whatever it is, and it's fantastic information, some of my best information, then they're likely to come back and engage with me. I mean, it just makes logical sense. Now, I know it doesn't make emotional sense because people have this lack mentality where they think if they've given a piece of information away, they've lost it. It's a bit like a candle, isn't it? You know the old analogy of this, Carol, I'm sure. If I light your candle with my lit candle, I don't lose the heat or flame of mine. I've only passed it on, I haven't lost it. And it's the same with information. If you have that same idea, that when you've given information to somebody, you haven't lost the information or its use for yourself. All you've done is share it. All you've done is change the world for the better. All you've done is positively impact your clients' lives. Now, here's the truth of it, and I know this from 40 years in business. People do not implement the stuff they learn. They need your help to implement it. Yeah. Therefore, if you're a coach or a consultant or speaker or trainer, don't worry about it. Don't share every single bit of your best stuff. Obviously not. But if you've got 10 great things to say, share 3 of them in a report or 3 different videos or whatever it might be. And people will love you for it, respect you, rate you, raise your credibility in the marketplace, and send you money, which is not a bad idea.
That sounds good.
But that's the challenge with this lead generation stuff, Carol, is the fact that what people do, they create a free informational product, but it's rubbish. Yeah. Yeah, and it's not well written, it's not well put together, they don't spend time or money or energy on the design, they don't make it look good. You know, they deliver it as I did in the early days, by the way, I'm exactly the same, in a Word document with clip art. It's not good enough. You know, you need it professionally designed. It's not like there's a cost to produce it if you're not printing it. And if you are printing it, then you print it well. You know, full colour. Will it cost a little bit more? Yes. Is it worth it because of every client you'll get? Of course. You know, if it was cost £2 each and you printed 100 of them, if it cost £5 each, you know, you went to Lulu or somebody and printed them on demand, or Amazon CreateSpace or something like this, and they were costing you £5, then so what if you're going to get a new client? And if you can't get a new client in 1 in every 100, then your marketing's no good. Or your sales process follow-up's no good. or what you've got to offer is no good, or you can't sell. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Sorry to be firm about it, but it's the truth.
It's true though, isn't it?
It's true.
You know, those are the only answers. If you're not making money, then you're doing something wrong. Part of your process is not in the right place, or the way you're selling's wrong.
Yeah.
You were saying there about if you're gonna give obviously your big guns first, but make it a professional product. Now, for people that have cash flow and they've got marketing budget there, that it's like, oh, of course. At the moment, we're in sort of a bit of is it a double dip they're calling it, isn't it? And a lot of people are scared, and it's like, oh, but I don't have money. Now, we don't need a lot of money to make it professional. How would you say to people, what's the easiest way to create that first professional, really good quality, get to know, like and trust me, here is a fantastic free gift that you're going to want?
Okay, very simple process really. All we need to be thinking about is what are the challenges that our potential customer faces. Yep. And then if you think of it like this, I'll give you a little 6-stage process, very simple for people to do. If you're going to describe a problem and a possible solution, you could use this process for each idea that you put in your informational product, or you can use it as the whole concept. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So they all begin with P. It's very simple. You start off with the perspective. So when you're writing, or you can actually record it quite simply if you wanted to. You can either record it on a modern phone, because they have fantastic recording devices. I mean, the modern phones these days, have some of the best video cameras you can have. It's called convergence. Everything's here. You don't need anything else. It's quite simple, right? So you can either record it and then have it transcribed, or transcribe it yourself, or you can type it straight out, or you can handwrite it. But you basically start off by explaining the perspective of the idea that you want to talk about. For example, let's say it's time management, and I was writing. To give it some perspective, I'd probably say, as you and I know, there is no such thing as time management. Time just happens. The only thing that's possible for us, for you and I, is to manage ourselves within the time that we have available. The 24 hours a day, the 168 hours each week that we have to do with as we wish. It's entirely our choice. So let's move ourselves away from the concept of time management and move ourselves firmly into the idea of self-management of our time, our precious, irreplaceable time. So there's perspective. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you describe the problem, whatever the problem is that you think people have. Then you decide the pain that problem creates. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you describe the possible solution. Then you describe the pleasure that possible solution will bring your client. And then you describe the plan of action of what they must do. So it's very, very simple, isn't it? It's really, you see, I'm a Brummie. I'm from Birmingham, okay? I like simple stuff. I love things. If I have a skill, Carol, and without me, I'm not an immodest sort of person. If I have a skill, it's to take the apparently complex and make it simple. Yeah? And it's just chunk it down into simple steps that people can take. You see, here's how I'm slightly different in the marketplace, and I've got an expression like I have an expression for most things that I do. People who teach you what get paid. People who teach you how get wealthy. All right? And what most people out there in the marketplace are doing is teaching what. And what I do is teach what and how.
Yeah.
So I show people, like I just showed you with that process, and we had more time, I'd go in more detail of it. But basically, for any idea you want to share with somebody, you give it perspective, you state the problem, you state the pain of the problem, you state the possible solutions, you state the pleasure of the solutions, and you give them a plan of action. I mean, how simple is that?
Yeah.
Now, that could be for each tip of 7, or each mistake of 7, or whatever it might be. And I've found, Carol, when we're talking about informational products to attract clients, if you're making a product for sale, you give it a towards motivated title, more likely, not always. If you're giving a product away that you want people to respond to in order to start in the funnel of your marketing process, you use an away motivated title, and one that points out, as I mentioned earlier, the people, the problem, and the product. Yeah? Or the people, the problem, and the solution. So the 7 big mistakes that business owners make. So we're talking mistakes. Mm-hmm. We're already talking business owners, so we know who we're talking to. Now we tell them what the problem is that's costing them lost turnover, lost profits and lost personal cash. And now we give them the solution and how to avoid them. So that title works well because it tells you who it's aimed at, what problem we're looking at, so to see if that resonates with them, and what is the pain created by that problem, and what is the possible solution that I might be able to offer. And therefore people will go, that's me. And if they don't go, that's me, I don't mind, because they're my wanted. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think that is, you just mentioned away motivated and towards motivated. Now, I know exactly what you're talking about, but maybe we've got some people who are listening into the show that are thinking, what's he talking about, away motivated and towards motivated?
Okay, make that clear for you. I'll give you an expression first then, like most things. Away motivation is the catalyst for action, and towards motivation is the continuation of action. So the reason that most people take action in their life is to move away from pain. They very often think it's towards motivated, either they're moving towards pleasure. But if you question them, you'll find that for not everything in life, Carol, but a lot of things. And I'll give you the classic example of this. I've asked people around the world at seminars, thousands of people, this question. I've said, put your hand up if you've ever smoked and given up. And of course, these days, more and more people are giving up smoking. So you get a vast number of people who put their hands up. I then ask them to either write down or think of the reason that they gave up smoking. In other words, the answer to the question, why? Why did you give up, right? Now, when I go round and point at people and get them to read out their answers or tell me their answers, and I get them to hold the answer in their mind so they're not influenced by others, I find at least 90% of the answers are way motivated. And yet, if you'd ask those people in a different type of conversation about their giving up, right, and what they thought was the motivation, they would have claimed it was towards, but it's actually away. They'll say things like, my husband hated me smoking, my wife hated me smoking, I realised I was killing myself, I smelt, it was costing me a fortune. I wanted to be healthier. They didn't say I wanted to have more money. They didn't say I wanted to smell better. The reasoning, the kick, the catalyst for them to take action was away motivated. And once they got going, the reason to keep going was towards motivated, because away motivation is the catalyst for action, and towards motivation is the continuation. The reason is that away motivation runs out. As you move away from the pain, it has less impact on you. This is why people join a gym in January because they feel unfit and fat, and they leave in March when they've lost a little bit of weight. Because the away motivation has no longer got the impact, and without necessary goals and targets to create the continuation of action, they end up in the middle, going nowhere. It's called the comfort zone, but heaven only knows why. So that, I think I'm answering the question there for you, is that if somebody doesn't have time or doesn't have the money, they don't have the budget, then create a very simple report by sitting down and writing it. That doesn't cost any money, it costs time. And if you're watching crap on TV, turn it off and start doing something to change your life, right? Because you talk to people who haven't got time, but if you ask them the plot of local soaps, they can tell you. That doesn't work, does it? You can't have can't have time and you're watching rubbish on TV, right? And I'm a great believer in having downtime and chill time and listening to music and reading, by the way. So, you know, but I'm just saying, if you focus, you can very easily create an informational product in the way in which I've just described it. And then you can either post it online. You know, was that the cat?
It was the dog.
I saw something go past.
Just went past.
So, you know, go and get yourself a WordPress site and learn how to use it. And post it up there. I mean, WordPress, most people can use, some optimized press, WordPress, that type of thing. Create a little website for yourself. If you don't know how to do it, go to the library, get a book on it, go online, find a report on it. There will be free stuff online to tell you how to do this. So money can't be the excuse. I tell you what it is. A friend of mine called Jeff Pettit, runs a very successful business that sells referees equipment and electronic flags. Yep. And he and I are always swapping expressions because we're always creating expressions. And Jeff came up with an expression which I think is just a genius expression just a few days ago, and it was this. Most people reach the limit of their belief well before they reach the limit of their talent.
I like that.
I
That
like
is
it a lot,
so true.
isn't it? So what happens to
Absolutely.
people, the reason they don't become successful, they stop believing they can.
Yeah.
It isn't that they run out of money or time, Carol. They certainly don't run out of time. They run out of their belief, and very often the belief in themselves, before they reach the limit of their talent. They're more than capable. They have the skills, they have the knowledge, they have the expertise, and they have the mental capacity to go and find out how to do what they don't know how to do.
Yeah.
So it isn't a case of I don't know how, it's I don't know how yet. So go find out.
Yeah.
Because these days, technology is so powerful and so simple. You can become a video producer with iMovie in 2 hours and make stunning stuff. You can become an audio editor inside an hour. You can become a writer by sitting down and writing. Because there's one thing that writers do, Carol, they write.
Do they?
They do. That's what writers do. They write things, right? But people say, you know, they don't do the obvious. And so, forgive me getting on a high horse for a moment, but it's this. It's relatively simple. It's not always easy, but it's relatively simple to generate an information report that you can use for client lead generation and acquisition. You can then start to tell people about the other things you do and be proud of the difference you can make and charge appropriately. And if you're ever struggling to charge, think about this. Think how hard it is to change the price once you've set it with a client. So if you think you're going to work with the client for 2 years, set the price for 2 years' time.
Yeah.
And charge that today. And then you'll still be happy in 2 years' time. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I was talking to someone the other day about pricing, and they were saying, "Oh, but I can't charge that sort of price. I might lose some of my clients." And it's like, start out at that sort of price. I was taught once, you start high, you can always drop, but
Yep.
if you start low, it is very difficult to go up.
It absolutely is. And again, you've got to test.
Yeah.
You've got to be prepared to test. And if you're doing, for example, coaching or speaking or training or mentoring, whatever it is, you're swapping your irreplaceable life.
Yeah.
How much is a day of your life worth?
Yeah.
I think of it this way. Every single day, you've got to raise an invoice for what you do. You'll either raise it to a client or you'll raise it to yourself. So be careful what you do.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And it's when you were talking there about people can learn how to create their products, because so many people go, "Oh, but I don't know how." We all have that ability to learn whatever, and there's so many different ways of creating that free gift, isn't there? It could be a video, it could be an audio, it could be, like you say, written. That there are just something for everybody. I don't think there's anybody who could say, "I can't create a free product full of good stuff to give to people."
Correct. And these days, if you don't feel that you're confident enough to start with, to be on camera, for example, then do what's called screen capture. So if you're on a PC, you'll use your PowerPoint. If you're on Mac, you'll use Keynote, and you'll create yourself a PowerPoint presentation or a Keynote presentation, and you'll record it and talk to it at the same time. And therefore, you've created a product. It's so simple. Or if you want to get a bit more sophisticated and you're on PC, you get Camtasia or Cam Studio or Ping or something like that. If you're on Mac, get yourself a copy of ScreenFlow. ScreenFlow is like $70 or something. Camtasia is £200 odd, but you can do it for free as well. There's lots of free stuff online, and it's very easy to create a Keynote or PowerPoint presentation and then talk along with it, and then record that. And you've got a free informational product or a paid informational product. I'm seeing more and more products these days that are screen capture products, where people are talking through a presentation, teaching people their ideas. It's just so easy to do. No, it's not. It's so simple to do. It's easy to do because it takes dedication, discipline, focus, hard work. But after all, that's what you get paid for.
Yeah.
There's only one person that makes money, and that's the mint. That's a business. The rest of us have to earn money by adding value to somebody else's life.
And that, what you just said there, by adding value to someone else's life, I mean, that is it. You've mentioned belief. You've mentioned adding value, because if you're not adding value, and if you don't believe in yourself, and if you don't value yourself, I think your information product is going to be pretty lame. I don't know. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more, absolutely. You see, here's the deal. There's four things you teach people, that you share with people on your informational products, whether that's delivered live at a seminar or a webinar or whatever it might be, a conference or a workshop, or if it's delivered online, or if it's delivered through the post on a CD or a DVD. You share your knowledge, your experience, your expertise, and the fourth one is what I call the magic ingredient, which I'll come back to in a second. But you share your knowledge. Now, other people have knowledge, but they don't exactly have your knowledge because they don't know what you know. And very often people are slightly reticent, Carol, to hold back and tell people what they know because they think it's too simple. And yet I know that most people don't know what you know, and most people don't know what I know. And this will be true for anybody who listens to this or watches this. They will know stuff that they take for granted that actually others don't know. Yeah. So you have fantastic knowledge. Right? You have experiences to share with people that nobody else has because they're your experiences. They are so valuable as how-to products to help other people not make those mistakes. And you have your expertise, right? The stuff that you've learned to do is just fantastic. And you have the magic ingredient, which is your take on it.
Yeah.
And no one else can share that. And that's where the money is. You say, Carol, this is what I believe. I believe that as a human beings, you and I are on a pathway. And we're on a path from where we were, through where we are, to where we're going. And I think it's our responsibility as human beings to reach back on the path and help people who haven't reached where we've reached and bring them along and help them with our knowledge, experience, our expertise, our take. It's also, I believe, our responsibility to help people who are at the same point on the path and go forward together. And the third thing is I also believe that it's our responsibility to look forward and see the people who have achieved far more than we have, who are ahead of us on the path, and continually push them to be better so they can help us even more. If everybody focused in that way, reaching back, reaching sideways, and pushing forwards, all of us would move forward together faster, more easily, more comfortably than we do today. Because there isn't time in life to make all the mistakes. You have to make some of them so you know which ones to avoid. But for very little investment, you can learn the knowledge, experience, expertise, and take of so many other people. I mean, look at, you get a book, I've got a book here, fantastic book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek, right? I mean, what does this cost? Oh, about £9. £9 to get this guy's wisdom? Wow. I mean, buy books every day and read them, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget to read them. Wow. I mean, you've just shared so much stuff, and I just love the way you put things because it's very clear and concise the way that you actually share everything with people, which is brilliant.
Thank you.
And the fact that we have spoken, it's not just about your skills and knowledge. You've given up people ideas of how to actually create their first product, what to put in as content, and the bit about the belief and motivation and just get out there and do it. And just so much in such a short time. There we go. There's proof that you can share so much stuff in very little time. And you can share it in a very easy way that everybody can understand no matter what level they're at as well. And I think that's absolutely brilliant, Peter. And I'm just so happy that you've been on the show with me.
It's been my pleasure, Carol. I always love talking to you and I love the questions. I love your conversational style, so it's been my pleasure too. Thank you.
Brilliant. That's lovely. And hopefully we can get you back again in the future.
Be delighted.
Brilliant. Have a lovely day.
Thanks, Carol.